Come on.
This is Outside the Round with Matt Burrill, a Raise Rowdy podcast.
Today's episode, we've got one of our favorite homies in the country music world and the lifestyle world. He comes from the land of Canada, and he is on his. Is this a permanent residency that you're here? Or
Well,
is this
for
like
the next, no, I'm on like, the hell do you call it? Well, like a travel, like a 6-month snowbird type visa thing.
Hell yeah.
So I'm here for the next 2 months, and then heading back home for the summer festival season back home in New Brunswick, and then coming back again in the fall.
Sick. So this is Sawyer Hannay. Did I say the last name right?
Hannah.
Sawyer Hannay.
Yeah.
Sawyer Hannay from the great land of Canada, the founder of Country Liberty, one of our favorite brands up in Canada. And dude, it's good to have you back in town because it's been a while. And you were saying you were going to be coming a lot more this year, and now you're here for a good extended period of time and getting a lay of the land. How have you enjoyed Nashville? You've been here for what now? A couple days it's been?
Yeah, I got in Monday at like supper time. I drove, so it was like 30 hours or so with time changes and stuff, man. I don't even know, honestly. I was like just on autopilot, especially from Massachusetts, like all through Virginia. Real boring drive, so I just kind of almost slept through that one. But yeah, it took me all weekend to get here. I visited some people along the way.
Where'd you stop?
I stopped in. So my grandmother lives in Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah.
That's where my dad lives in New Hampshire along the coastline.
And
my dad's from Maine originally, so I've got family all in that New England area. It's beautiful up there, man.
Yeah, it's great. I've been going up there, ever since I was a little kid, as long as I can remember. I think I had my 5th birthday party in Cape Cod, like. My mother grew up in New Jersey, so
yeah, that's right. We've talked about that.
Yeah, we've talked about that. Yeah, so she's, my grandmother's still in Cape Cod, so I just stopped in, visited her, had some Chinese food.
Nice.
Yeah, and then kept trucking.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Putting some miles on the rig, and what have you been up to the first few days? I know we saw you on Wednesday. You popped over to Losers.
Yep.
You've gotten to see a few events. You went to the Dan and Shay show last night. How was that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was good. That was electric. And it's funny with those guys, you could tell it meant a lot to them because in between every song, they like expressed their thanks and they, pointed out to their family and friends in the crowd. And I think the last time they were there was before COVID.
Yeah.
So they were like really stoked on life to be there. So it was a good atmosphere, good show.
Yeah, the atmosphere of a Nashville show when you have especially like a country band playing in there where it's guys that live here,
right,
and having that hometown show vibe and just all their team gets to be there and all the songwriters and just the community of a Nashville show. Shows here just hit different. As a tour manager, I enjoyed Nashville shows because I got to sleep in my own bed, but I didn't like them because like the guest list just gets so crazy because you got to think of all your homies are in town. So it's like the backstage areas are just freaking nuts and stuff. But Bridgestone is a cool place to see a show, dude.
Yeah, Bridgestone's awesome. I've watched a few hockey games there, and that might have been my first concert there. But yeah, it's a great atmosphere.
Yeah,
perfect location. Like just oh my god.
Did you hit the bars after?
No. I'm trying to be on my best behavior.
Look at you, a new Sawyer. Let's go.
Sawyer, yeah. Well, I flew down here, 4 or 5 times last year, and each time I partied a little bit less.
Yeah.
And the last time, I think the only time I went out was after our round.
Yeah.
At Live Oak to kind of celebrate that.
Go over to Red Door.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm trying to ease into it. I had to mentally, like the last few months, be like, okay, Sawyer, you're gonna be there for 2 months. You got to be on your best behavior, and you can't just, it's not just like a wild show the whole time, right? You got to get some work done.
Yeah.
So I've been sticking to that so far, but I mean, I'm only 4 or 5 days in. So.
Yeah. Hey, I'd say you're doing pretty good. You're doing pretty good for 4 or 5 days in. So talking about your upbringing and where you're from, obviously Eastern Canada, right?
Yeah, that's right. East Coast.
So is that Prince Edward Island? Is that Ontario?
New Brunswick.
New Brunswick.
Yep.
Okay, New Brunswick,
Yep.
which is funny. There's a New Brunswick, New Jersey that I used to work at a radio station.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was looking up my route here. Yeah.
Yeah. It's where Rutgers University is and stuff.
Cool.
But so growing up there and playing hockey and doing all kinds of stuff. What's the path that kind of led you to doing Country Liberty?
Man, it's
killing it, bro.
Well, we're trying hard.
No, you're doing great.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I got a lot of really good team members, and even in this past year, everybody's just raising it up a notch, and it's really rewarding and exciting to see, and everybody's excited. And my whole team, I was a little worried coming here for 2 months and leaving my HQ and stuff behind, but all of my team members have been so supportive and so fantastic. So it's been really great. But yeah, I grew up in a town, 800 people, East Coast, cheese toast, man, New Brunswick, really small town. I got out of the town when I was 16. I moved away to our biggest East Coast city in Halifax in Nova Scotia to play major junior hockey. So I played hockey there, and I eventually got drafted to the NHL, to the Vancouver Canucks. And then I started to travel a lot more, and gain a little bit more perspective. I played pro a little bit in the States. I signed an American League deal with Chicago, but played in Indiana, and then I played in Europe. So I got out in the world a little bit, and I realized, how much I loved like the way that I grew up in the country lifestyle, a town of 800 people. And growing up in that town, I just thought, hey, everybody was like me. Everyone is driving cars at 14, 15, and everybody's, like just, barefoot and crazy and living out in the woods. And when I started playing with these different players in all these different cities, I realized that most people didn't grow up that way. A lot of these athletes grow up in the suburbs or in the cities and so on and so forth. So, and as I was experiencing that city lifestyle in different areas, I just grew really proud of where I was from. And I was like, man, I want to do something about this someday when hockey's done. I thought I'd be playing hockey for a lot longer than I was, but I went back to school, played university hockey, got a degree, started my business, and just shifted gears, man. I was like, I love hockey. I loved hockey, but I really love this, and business is a game that you can play forever.
Yeah.
So I was just like, man, I want to lean into this. This feels right. So yeah, that's kind of where it all got started. I was broke, put myself through school. I put $200 in with a partner of mine at the time. $400 total, man. 12 t-shirts, one design. The design, I think, the design I'm wearing right now, man.
The classic.
Cost me $180 for this design, 180 taxes in, and man, we've sold a lot of this logo. It's done really well, but yeah, just started selling out of my apartment at school, pedaling, man, out of the back seat of my little $1,200 hatchback. Trunk didn't even open, just greasy little car, man, anything I could afford, right? And just selling t-shirts and just, So that's how we get started, got some traction. And it's funny, being back in Nashville, I feel like I'm not starting at scratch, I'm starting with experience and a foundation, but in some ways it feels like I'm kind of starting over,
It's kind of fun though.
It's awesome. I love it.
I like that because it gives you that energy and gives you that inspiration to just do it again. And now having the knowledge and the business sense that you have, plus that competitive nature of being on the ice for so long like you were.
Yep.
It's cool. And it's a brand that, like you said, speaks to your hometown in the East Coast. And that's something that a lot of folks relate to in the States and small towns all over the United States, all over the world. There's small towns like that in every country that you go to, So it really, embracing the small town lifestyle is something that's really cool. And I think important to a lot of people. So
I think so too. And that's what I realized when I was down here just for kind of a few day vacation here, 2 years ago. I was like, holy shit. I was like, people here resonate, and then I'm like, well, small town America. I grew up listening to country music, and all those songs were about small town America, but they were just distant. They were just music videos to me. They were just songs, right? And then when I got down here in the flesh in the South, I was like, okay, this is not just something I see on TV. This is how they live their lives, Like it became real for me, and I was like, I need to be here. This is where my brand belongs. This is where my brand needs to be. I feel we're doing a pretty good job representing small town Canada, but the next step in our evolution is to come here and represent these folks.
Yeah. What's a better depiction of small town Canada? Trailer Park Boys, Letterkenny, or Schitt's Creek?
Well, I've only seen a little bit of Schitt's Creek and a little bit of Letterkenny. Trailer Park Boys is...
Because you said greasy, and that immediately brought me to Ricky and Bubbles going and jacking a vending machine or something, or like the parking meter.
Yeah, so those guys, that's real greasy. Like, I don't know if that really exists, but they're like an exaggerated version of what can go on in some of those areas. They're awesome, those guys. They're legends, too.
Yeah.
And it's funny, when I was in Europe, this was in 2012, so a long time ago, my Austrian trainers knew what Trailer Park Boys was, which is, for anyone that doesn't know, it's like a super low budget, raunchy, hilarious
one of
show,
the greatest shows of all time. I would go ahead and say that. I loved it.
Yeah, it's awesome. And they knew. And then I was in Costa Rica last year, and this guy I met from Belgium, he used to order the DVDs on eBay. Like, this is before streaming services and stuff, right? Because it used to air on Showcase at like 10 p.m. And as a kid, we were supposed to be in bed and we'd be up listening as like, my dad and my uncles drank beer and watched Trailer Park Boys. And and this guy in Belgium, he's like, yeah, man, I used to order it on eBay. Like, I didn't know if it would be delivered in 4 weeks or 4 months, but like I was ordering the box sets. I said, this is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, but that's Trailer Park Boys, man. Yeah, I mean, we're not that wild.
Yeah.
At least where I grew up. But yeah, we're proud of that show, man. That's cool.
Yeah, that, and then Letterkenny was one that I remember watching when I first moved to town, and I was living at I was sharing an apartment with my buddy Dakota, and we would just be up late, get a little high, and watch Letterkenny and just laugh our asses off about like the DJs from up country and fishing in Quebec and this and that, and just the sayings and like how they showcase like the chirping segment of hockey, like the back and forth with like Shoresy and like Jonesy, Riley and Jonesy and all of that stuff. Like playing hockey growing up, I feel like that's something that a lot of Canadians do, but you got to do it at a high level. Like, that was like a big part of your life, right?
Yeah, huge part, man. Still a huge part of who I am today. And I don't know where I'd be, honestly, if I didn't have hockey to kind of get my life started. Thankfully, like, I had the support system. My parents were fantastic. Hockey's a very expensive sport.
Yes, it is.
That's the tough part about it, but it's in our blood. And, like, I had no choice. As a little kid, like, as soon as I was old enough to skate, like, I started skating. Like, it was in my family for years, and so hockey was just a no-brainer for us, but it's expensive, so I was lucky enough to get the support and things all the way up through. But what's funny about my hockey journey is, like, I would say, like, growing up I was usually above average, but I was never a superstar by any means. I was never fantastic. I just kind of stuck it out and stayed above average through the ranks, and and just kind of got to where I got to that way. But yeah, hockey was man, it's just part of life. It's part of culture. It's even when I go back now, like if I bump into certain people, that's what they bring up. They bring up, oh, when you played here, and I'm like, geez, man, that was 10 years ago, like, but that's it's ingrained in our culture. Right. So that was a no-brainer for me to play, and all my best buddies played, and I'm still in touch with a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
And,
do you have any buddies from back home that like ended up going to the full like pro thing, or guys that you came up in the ranks with that are in the NHL?
Once I hit junior, yes. Like, I played with McKinnon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, McKinnon. Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah. Protected his ass for 2 years.
I was gonna say, I bet he was flying around back then.
That guy was a freak. So what he's doing in the NHL this year, he did in junior at 16 years old, and he. Just for context, he got drafted by another team, and we traded him we traded for him. He's from Halifax, or Cole Harbour, just outside of Halifax. So the hometown team traded for him. We traded 3 first-round picks, our top goal scorer, and our third-line center before that kid played 1 game in the league, dude. And he walked in and was the best player in the league just the day he walked into camp. He was a beast, and he was destined for greatness from day one. So at the junior level, yes, I played with some of those guys, but from my town, no. Like, playing even major junior, which would be like the equivalent of American college here, I guess, wasn't really on my radar, because the last guy to do that from my area was like maybe 15, 20 years older than me. So it didn't really seem attainable. So I just kind of stumbled into those things, like into those ranks. Like I said, I was never a superstar, so it just kind of happened somehow. And but yeah, I didn't really think playing major junior was possible. And then I got drafted to the NHL, and I was just like,
that has to be fucking crazy.
Dude, it was my graduation year, high school graduation year. I didn't even go to the draft. My agent, which I had an agent, which was like crazy to begin with too. I was like, I don't need a fucking agent. What are you talking about? But they insisted, no, get an agent. And they said, oh, you might get drafted. I was a late pick too, like for context. But people, they said, oh, you might get drafted and all this stuff. And I said, wow, I don't know. I don't think so, So I didn't even go to the draft in L.A. It was in L.A. Like 17 years old. I could have been, flown out to L.A. to do an NHL draft, but I didn't want to go and not get picked, right? So it was my high school graduation day. Was the same day of the NHL draft, and I'm sitting there, and we have this. My great grandparents have this cottage where we, like, all of my extended family meet up. So that's where the grad parties are. That's where the Christmas events are and hosted and stuff, right? So we're at this cottage. We call it the cottage, and I got a call from the Vancouver Canucks, the NHL. They're like, "Hey, Sawyer, we just drafted you in the 7th round, and get ready, in 3 weeks you're flying for a development camp to Vancouver." And I look around, I'm like, what the hell just happened, dude? I like blacked out.
Yeah.
Of course, the family and everything celebrated. I went to my high school graduation, and then went to the graduation party. And that was fucking insane.
That was a
man.
draft party and a graduation party
it was,
at the
man.
same time.
And back home, like we have field parties, right? We don't have, there's no bars or anything
Yeah.
like where we're from, right? So we have field parties, and this was on a farm, and it was a big field party, and it was the biggest party of the year. The grad party always is for that age group.
Yeah.
And it was a banger of a party. And then it just so happened I got drafted at the same time, and it was one of the best days. Wow, one of the best days of my life, easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah.
And then what was the you were on a show, right? Up in Canada? Is
Yeah.
it the Canadian Shark Tank?
That's right.
That,
yeah.
What's it called? Is it called Canadian Shark Tank?
No, Dragon's Den.
Dragon's Den.
Yeah,
That's kind of cooler than Shark Tank. Like,
Well, I think
like-
Dragon's Den was first, dude.
oh, really?
And then, yeah, if I might get fact checked on this, I think it was first, and then the big dragons went on to Shark Tank.
Oh,
Like
really?
Robert and Kevin O'Leary and those guys. Like, I'm pretty sure Shark Tank just came in and said, "Hey, we're going to offer you a whole lot more money to
Yeah.
come do your thing here," and they did. But yeah, Dragon's Den was basically Shark Tank.
What was that process like? Because that seems I watched Shark Tank a lot, and like I know like the premise of the show and all that, but I'm sure there's like a bunch of stuff that goes on behind the scenes.
Well, there's so much. Like, I don't even know where to get started. Well, first of all, I applied 2 years earlier and got rejected. So I was like, and I watched the show, and I knew not to make a fool of myself, but the way it works is you pitch to like a regional producer. They travel around the country. Like, usually there's like a regional pitch. It's 1 day per province, and they gather all these local business people from that given province.
Yeah.
So I made my 2-hour drive, did my pitch to this producer just in front of like a foldable table, and just, pitch my stuff. My numbers were decent. They rejected me. So I was a little butthurt. I was like, fuck, whatever. And then the next year I skipped it because I was butthurt, probably ego, right? I'm like, all right, whatever. And then the next year, they always do it in Q1 of the year. So it's a slower season, right, for me after Christmas and stuff. So I remember scrolling on my Instagram feed, and I seen an ad for it. I was like, oh, shit, they're in St. John today. So I was like, all right, well, fuck, I'm not that busy today. I'll drive to St. John. So I drove 3 hours, no preparation, nothing, because I was disappointed before, and I was like, I'm not going to dedicate like days of preparation just to get disappointed again, which is the wrong mindset. But I went down.
Yeah.
I pitched it. This time my business was a little bit bigger. I had a rental component too to Country Liberty. I had a Liberty Village, which was like offering the Country Liberty lifestyle in rental form.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, thank you. So I think they liked that, and then I got, that was like February of 2020, and then we all know what happened in March. World shuts down. Pandemic, dude. I was like, come on. Like, really? I just got in, and then there was so much unknown. They're like, well, are we going to film virtually? How are we going to do this? Because I don't know about the rules here in the South, but in Canada, it was lockdown.
Oh, you guys were locked down.
Provincial lockdown.
We
dude.
watched how your lockdown went down, and the truckers and all the stuff.
dude.
It was a whole saga. In the northern part of the U.S. and like the major cities, it was one way, but in this part of the country, it was pretty much wide open about 2-3 months in.
Yeah, well, I'm happy for you guys.
Yeah,
that
I know
it
you
was,
got
'cause
stuck.
It sucked, man. I was dating a girl long distance too, and I had to quarantine 5 times. So if you left our province, you had to automatically quarantine for 14 days. Just leaving the province, not the country, dude. You leave the province, and not only that, the social stigma. You're the asshole that left. Like, oh my God, shame you, because nobody could leave, right? So if you were someone to come and go, people didn't like that. And the police, like the RCMP and the conservation officers, would check up on you to make sure you were quarantining. And there was huge fines. And at one point in Quebec, there was fines. There was curfew fines. Like, it was very strict, very weird time. So here I am trying to get on this TV show during the weirdest time in human history. And they said, we got 2 options for you. First of all, you got to sign an NDA, so you can't talk about any of this to anybody. So I told basically my 2 parents and my girlfriend at the time. That was it. And they said, you can fly to Toronto, and what were the rules? Geez, get a COVID test, 7-day quarantine, COVID test, blah, blah, blah. But the airports, or at least the perception of airports, were you were more likely to catch it if you went through an airport. So they said the safest bet is if you drive. So I took my pickup and drove all the way to Toronto, which is, I think, our biggest city in the country. And
how far of a drive is that?
14 hours.
Oh God.
Yeah. Across the border, man. I was like, and people like would see your license plate and like, you know, be like, he's from another province, like this asshole, right? So I was like, it was weird. And I get there, I had to quarantine, do the test, whatever. Downtown Toronto was a complete ghost town. I think my Airbnb was like $100.
Wow.
Which is like the equivalent of staying like on Broadway in like a prime location overlooking Bridgestone. Like I was overlooking the Scotiabank in Toronto. It was like $99 for an Airbnb because there was just a ghost town, right?
Yeah.
And I got there, did my thing, but of course everything had to be a secret because of the stigma and all that, and I signed an NDA. So get to Toronto, do my pitch. My pitch was the first of the day. It was at 8 or 9 a.m., but I had to be at the studio for 6 a.m. So I had to be like ready to rock, like ready to go, ready to perform by 6 a.m. You know, had my cold shower, psyched myself up, went over to the studio. Zero human contact. The closest person to me was like 12 feet away. They're like, there's your dressing room. Like, you know, go. That's where you got to go to prepare, but don't dare get close to anybody. I wasn't allowed any models or anything like that. Like no human like connection really at all. I go out to finally pitch after sitting in that, not change room, but just like a preparation room, whatever, for like 2-3 hours. Nervous as hell, right, in your head. And but prepared. I worked hard to prepare. And then I go out and there's a I think it was like a red X on the floor of tape. They said, go stand there. And they said, you get 1 minute, 60 seconds that you can speak without any dragon interruption. So you better make your 60 seconds count, right? So, of course, I rehearsed my 60-second pitch like a million times. Went out, did the 60 seconds, nervous as hell, man. Voice cracks, you name it.
Yeah.
Lights like crazy. The dragons who, like, I idolize, right?
Yeah.
They're sitting there. So not only am I talking to my idols, I'm on TV. And the nature of the show is it's either you do good and they make you look good with the edit, or you make a fool of yourself and they make you look horrible with the edit because it makes good television, right?
Yes.
The producers care about good television. So I had that in the back of my mind, and I get up and I do my pitch. I got about, let's say, 2 minutes of actual time before they started asking questions. The pitch went for about an hour. They showed about 6 minutes of it. So it was sliced and diced, edited heavily. But overall, it was a good experience. I got 4 offers, and I ended up getting a deal, which was good. But nerve-wracking, man. It was nerve-wracking. And they asked some challenging questions. There was one question, my cost of acquisition, I didn't know the answer. And I did all the mental math in advance. I knew what percentages I would offer, what prices I would accept.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. I did all that. But I didn't do the math on that. And I had to look at Michelle and just be like, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
And I was just honest about it, you know, and they didn't show that on TV, thank God, because that was probably the worst part of it for me. But they asked, there was one girl that's in the beverage space, and Manjeet, she kind of gave me a hard time, but the edit made her look like a villain. Like, she was really nice, too. She said some nice things. They cut that out, and they just, like, showed her, like, roasting me, basically, which was good.
Yeah.
Good in hindsight. But yeah, once I heard the offers coming, I relaxed. And even at one point, like, the way they make the show, they say, they say, go back to the phone booth and you have 30 seconds to make a call and make a decision, and feels so suspenseful. But in real life, they're just like, take your time, man. They pulled out their phones. They start texting. They're like, oh, just take your time. Do the math. And I'm like, really? I have more than like 20 seconds, like, to make a decision.
Yeah.
And the truth is you do. So it looked like a really high stress environment. It was nerve wracking, but it certainly wasn't as like suspenseful and stressful as it looked like on TV, for sure.
Yeah. And that was something that I'm sure helped get Country Liberty to another level.
Yeah, man. Right? It's still part of my pitch. Like, I sent a pitch today in an email, and I still include that link because it adds credibility, right? And it adds, like, it helps with the branding and, just like I said, the credibility, right? So it not only was it a good experience, a lot of exposure. We went through a really positive media cycle throughout that. But it's still just great for throwing in, like, hey, this is, in 6 minutes, you can learn all about my business. And also you can see that, we were validated by Canada's Best, right?
Yeah, dude, absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like from that, because I've watched the video of you up there with with your flannel and talking about the passion that you have for showcasing small town Canada and what small towns are like, and giving people that experience. And it translated beautifully, and you did a heck of a job on that. And it's really cool to have you here in the States. What's been like the biggest difference for you? Like, because it sounds like you grew up in American culture, like somewhat. Like a lot of Canadians. We're very close, obviously, border countries, but like having family in the Northeast and having all of that, but now actually like being here, what are some of the like major differences?
Yeah. I mean, the population. I mean, I think there's like 1 million people in Nashville, where my whole province,
at least,
right?
Yeah.
So
just in the city.
Yeah, my whole province has 750,000 people. That's it. So I live in a very rural area. Even our cities are very, very rural. So like from a landscape perspective and a population perspective, it's completely different. And obviously, with bigger population brings bigger opportunity, bigger. Some could say competition. Yeah. Things like that. My opinion of that is there's so much to go around.
Yes.
So I don't think it's competition.
Same. Agreed.
Yeah. I fanboy. I before I even met you or Nikki, I followed your brand. I was liking your pictures. I was looking at what you guys were doing and all that. Like, I was fanboying, and I still do that. I buy from all the brands that I look up to, and some of them are smaller than me maybe, but they're doing great things, so I admire that. Or some of them are bigger, or some of them are different, and so that's kind of my view on that. But certainly there's a lot more opportunity, I think, here, and just the population and the culture too. There's a little bit of, traffic today. I was a half an hour late for this, so like just little things like that, right? It's little differences, but I really like it. And I lived in Indiana temporarily when I was 21. And
middle America, bro. Indiana's
America.
a different place from a lot of other states in the US.
I would never live there again, but I learned my appreciation for American culture when I lived there. There was a lot of things I liked about the culture itself. The city of Evansville, Indiana wasn't necessarily my favorite. Yeah. But I did grow an appreciation for the American culture, and my grandparents lived in the States the whole way up through too. So I got to experience both sides of that coin. So I'm happy to have both, and really in an ideal world, I would have a life in both in the U.S. and in Canada, and just travel back and forth.
That's why dual citizenship exists. And there's a lot of the Canadian country scene. Nikki and I, as you know, like to champion. Obviously, you champion your fellow countrymen. Nikki and I have been telling people like that we think the Canadian country scene is like the new like Texas scene, like how people have always talked about like Texas being a huge pocket. Like there's Texas and there's Nashville, and now I think Canada has entered the chat, has entered the conversation. And there's been guys doing it for a very long time. You've had like your Brett Kissels, your Dallas Smiths, your James Barkers. Like there's been guys and girls doing it for a long time, but now you have this new wave of the Josh Rosses, the Owen Rieglings, the Ali Walkers, the Lydia Sutherlands, Robin Ottolini. And it's just such a cool time for all things Canadian country lifestyle and musically to be bridging in with Nashville. So of all the times for you to get here, I think you picked a good freaking time.
It's great timing. And like, it's funny you mentioned some of those names. Like Ali Walker, I've known her since I think I started Country Liberty, and she had like a little, she had some little bit of pop music. She's
done it all.
She's done it all. She's paid her dues. She's grinded, and then she just signed a record deal this year. Yeah. Right. So it's just so crazy to see that. And like you said, she's from PEI originally, which is the smallest province that we have. Yeah. The only way to get there is to travel across a bridge that's like, I don't know, it's like a 12-minute drive across a bridge across the ocean, So that's kind of how humble her beginnings were. So it's like really cool to see that, and to come here and now be a part of that, and to be even closer to the scene. Because like I said, growing up, country music was something that happened far away. It happened in Nashville. That's a place we see on TV, right? Yeah. And now I'm here in the flesh, and it's like, okay, this is attainable. This is realistic, for us. It's not just some faraway land that we see on TV, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're part of the festival circuit in Canada, like we are here in the
that's right.
States. And Cavendish, I know, is the spot where where Country Liberty is like integrated and all of that. Is the festival culture similar to how it is in America? I don't know if you've been to any here in the States, but it's like the tailgating, the camping, the diehard music fans, and just the lifestyle of everybody getting to experience things.
I've never been to a festival here, but just like consuming the content, I think it's safe to say yes. Cavendish was the first. I think there was some one-off concerts, outdoor concerts in the Maritimes, but Cavendish was the first one to really do it and do it consistently and do it well. And what's interesting with my relationship with those folks is like I started off as like a drunk moron going to the concert.
That is exactly how Nikki T started at country concert. That is how Rowdy was born.
That's right.
Was at the festival. So we can relate on that.
We can relate. Yes. Yeah. And that's what I was just a shithead that would put, I had a few $100 in my bank account, spend it all to go to that concert.
Yeah.
Campsite, you're eating, if you're eating, it's like sandwiches and burgers and it's just, so I went to the concert like that, and then Country Liberty started right around that time, and of course I tried to get into the festival, couldn't get in, so we would sell illegally on the campsites.
Oh,
yeah,
bootlegging,
man, and we were having drinks and we were socializing, and the salesmanship was on because we were having a blast.
Yeah,
man. We were selling T-shirts for like $20 or whatever we were doing, right, just to get anything going. And there was 2 years of that. Leading up to the event, I'd reach out and be professional and try to get into the event, and of course it wouldn't work. And then I'd say, okay, well, we're going to do this. We bought a 10x10 tent, started selling on our campsite, and the campsites started getting complaints because we were posting a lot of it on social, and people that weren't staying there were coming to try to buy. So then the campsite security was like, well, no, you're not associated with this campsite. Why are you trying to get in? And they're like, oh, we're trying to buy these shirts. And then all of a sudden the campsite owners are like, the hell, people are selling stuff back there in the overflow, like the dirt cheap, like the cheapest places you can camp, man. So we were doing that, and that eventually got back to the promoters. And the promoters, the CEO, he's no longer the CEO now, but he was at the time, and he always told this story at sponsorship meetings. He said that his team came to him and said, other sponsors, other vendors, and these campsites have a problem with these Country Liberty kids because they're a nuisance. They're not really supposed to be doing that. And they said, how do we get rid of them? And Jeff Squires, the CEO at the time, he was a hockey guy and stuff too, right? Salt of the earth guy. And he said, get rid of them. He said, let's work with them. He said, they're not going anywhere. Look at how fucking bothersome they are, right? They're not leaving.
Yeah.
So let's work with them. So that's how we got into Cavendish, man. And it's been an awesome relationship ever since.
Yeah, that is so similar to like, that's very, very like parallel to like the Rowdy story with country concert, because I've only been to it this past year. We're going again this year, but Nick's been going to it for 14 years in a row. Okay. Like he's just been, and it started out as a group of dudes on a bachelor party, and then they just kept going year after year after year, Yep. And it's like there's something about country music in the summer when it's warm out, and you got all the folks walking around and people drinking cold beer and playing cornhole and eating hot dogs and fucking hamburgers and all of that, dude. And it is such a big part of the lifestyle and of the community,
Yeah, it really is. And back home, we only get 8 to 10 weeks of nice weather, right? Like it was 24 degree. Well, you guys are Fahrenheit, so I don't know the translation. But
you guys, we're
Celsius.
Yeah, we're the dickheads that you do it. We just do we do things our own way, and everybody else has got the C and we got the F.
Yeah. No, that's right. And anyway, it's nicer weather. Like it snowed yesterday in Rexton, my town. Right. So it was nice. Like I was walking around with a t-shirt today. Right. So that's the difference. We have 8 to 10 weeks of good weather. So that's one thing about the east coast of Canada is when it's nice weather, everybody takes full advantage because it can be a long, kind of dreadful winter sometimes, right? Yeah. It's cold, and a lot of our employment is very seasonal, right? Yeah. So money gets tighter, and that's just kind of the way of life. Our industries are like fishing and stuff, right? So you can't fish when it's the winter. So when it's the summer, everybody just kind of comes alive, and that's festival season too, right? So it's all part of that experience of like, how much fun can we have in 8 weeks?
Yeah.
Right. So we're early July when festivals open up. We're just ready to burst at the seams and just have a blast, right? And that's what we do, and that's what we've done, right? So that's why those events are just so much more meaningful to us because we have, 6 to 8 months of cold weather and we're indoors and we're not really getting out and about, right?
Yeah, makes sense. I also love the story of how we met you. I wasn't with you at that night, but the night you ended up at
Ryman.
You ended up. So I've heard the story from Nikki T's account, but that night that Nikki T and you first got connected, I believe I was out of town or I was with my girlfriend or something. I wasn't going to that show.
Yeah.
But where was it? Was that Live Oak, right?
Well, I was at Live Oak, so I was coming to this city by myself with no connections, no friends, really. Something felt right about being here, so I would come, and I'm used to traveling, and doing things on my own as an entrepreneur and without a business partner. You kind of have to, right? So I got comfortable with that, and I just love the atmosphere at Live Oak, and I just kept going back, and there was a day I went for lunch with my computer thinking, oh, I'm going to do work. Yeah, right. So I get next to this guy who looks like Luke Combs. He even said, he's like, dude, I'm the Walmart Luke Combs. I was like, you are? I was like, he's a redneck from New Jersey. I loved him. I hung out with him all night, and he was a great guy.
Was that Zach Westcott?
No, he's not from here.
Oh, he's not from here. Oh, it was just a dude visiting.
Visiting, just like me. I had a guy, a complete tourist, on my right-hand side with this giant, he was so hilarious, this great big funny redneck from New Jersey, and I got family in New Jersey too.
Yes, and, you hit it off. Yeah,
I hit it off. One of my cousins is a bit of a redneck. He had a pet gator for a while, but anyway, that's a whole nother story. But and snakes and all that shit. But anyway, so we hit it off, and then to my left was this other guy. His girlfriend was shopping, so he was just killing time. So there's these three guys that are kind of by themselves. So we start bonding, having drinks and all that stuff. So, of course, lunch turns into drinks, and my computer goes away. And we're just having fun. And then I met – who did I meet first? I think I met Kaylee first, which was friends with Nikki.
Yeah.
And then we all started hanging out, and they invited me. They had an extra ticket. Maybe it was your ticket. I don't even know.
No, it wasn't mine.
They said, we got an extra ticket. Do you want to come to – the Ryman? And at the time I didn't really know the difference between the Grand Ole Opry and the Ryman. Again, something we see on TV growing up, but not something I was super familiar with. So when I realized it was like the original Grand Ole Opry, the Ryman, I was like, yeah, absolutely.
And it's a Turnpike show.
And it was a Turnpike show. Which I'm a huge Zach Bryan fan, and in his songs he references Turnpike, right? Because they're all from Oklahoma. And which I only realized after. I didn't know. Turnpike show was like the Ryman. Of course, I'm sitting here I'm here alone, and you're offering me this really fun experience. You guys seem like great people, which they were and are. And I was like, yeah, I'll join you, right? So then I go to the Ryman, and I've never seen a venue like that in my life. I felt like I was in a church, honestly.
We call it the Mother Church.
The Mother Church?
Mother Church of country music. Yeah.
There you go. Well, it adds up because the steep stairs reminds me of my church back home. The steep stairs to get upstairs, and then the pews, you sit in, and the stained glass, and the sound in there was amazing. And I left a big fan of Turnpike, and I had never heard one of their songs before. Really great experience. And that's how I met Nikki.
Yeah, and that was on their coming back tour. They had been taking a long break because their front man Evan had gone through some tribulations of having to get sober. So they took a long break, and that was like one of their first shows back in years.
Yep.
So that was a big for you to stumble into that is just incredible.
I went from eating a pulled pork sandwich with a redneck from New Jersey to sitting at the Ryman and watching the comeback show. Man, it was unreal.
Yeah, and it was cool. Yeah, and then Nikki T had told me, he's like, yeah, I met this guy Sawyer, and he has this brand in Canada called Country Liberty. He seems like a really cool dude, and I think we're gonna try to do something. I was like, okay, sick. And then we had emailed back and forth and had some phone calls, and then we got to do a really cool event together at Live Oak, which was
that was awesome.
A blast.
That was a blast, man. That was really cool. And you're like, hey, come on up and MC this thing, and I was like, oh shit, I got to speak in front of people. I was nervous, and comes so naturally to you. And I was up there. I was like, all right, let's do it. I had a couple beers. I was having fun.
Get that liquid courage in you.
A little bit of that, but just adrenaline too. The fact that I went from just kind of investigating this city, which can be, at first it was a little intimidating, It's a big American city. It's a long way from home. It's a very unknown world to me. And then to all of a sudden materializing an event with you guys and getting connected with you guys after following you guys on Instagram too for a while before I met Nikki. And before I met you, was really special, honestly.
Yeah, dude. It's funny how it all kind of works out.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have some favorite places in town that you like going to? It sounds like Live Oak is one of them.
Live Oak's my favorite. Yeah, I like Live Oak. I learned quickly. I had a lot of fun at Broadway my first like couple times, and when I say couple, I mean like 2-3 times. Like it was overstimulating, complete mayhem, crazy as we know, right? But I've never seen anything like that in my life, and it was fun. That was okay. But I really like Music Row. I like that area. That's why I'm staying in the Gulch now. I just walking distance to that area. Love the Live Oak feel. I love the casualness. Girls are showing up in jean jackets and ball hats, and that's my world, man. That's how I grew up. Like the girls at my high school, that's how they would dress, and we would go out to these like bootleggers, and hang, and that was our bar scene, and that's how we would dress, and it was nostalgic in a way for me. It wasn't high heels and mini skirts. It was jeans and oversized jackets and ball hats, and the guys are wearing boots and denims and just graphic t-shirts,
Canadian tuxedos, lots
Canadian
of denim.
tuxes, man. I love, I'm all for it because I grew up on that stuff, right? And then when I moved to these Canadian cities, there was like almost like a higher standard of, well, no, you're downtown in a city, like you got to dress up, and so then when I came here, I was like, no, you don't. And I don't want to,
No.
I don't want to change for anybody,
No,
man.
yeah.
I want to be who I am and wear what I wear and go out and have fun. And I really felt really welcomed and accepted here. And I just, something inside of me, man, felt like I gotta be in Nashville. I gotta go do something about this. And I've lived in many different cities. I've lived in different countries, different provinces, and now different states. But there's just something about Nashville. It really it was calling me, So here I am.
Yeah, it's an exciting city. It's a fun place to be in the Gulch. I'm very familiar with that area. My girlfriend used to live down there. She was staying in she stayed in the Novel Edge Hill apartments that are over there. I don't know which apartment, which building, what you're near, but there's some great restaurants over there. Walking around the Gulch it's a great area to be.
Yeah.
So you're in a primo spot, bro. They just opened a Neighbors over there, that bar that's on the corner.
Okay.
Really good food, really good spot. The pub down on the end is like Irish, like British themed.
Okay.
So really good like fish and chips and all of that stuff. And it's a cool vibe. That little ice cream store is really cool. Like there's a bunch.
Dude,
you're in a great fucking spot.
Your guys' food is so delicious, but it's horrible for you.
Oh, yeah.
And the servings are massive. Like
Yeah.
in Canada, we don't have servings like you guys do here, man.
Yeah.
And it's and I'm a pig. I'm like a glutton. I love food.
Well, yeah. Remember that time we went to Edley's and we sat there and ate barbecue?
Yeah, I love Edley's too.
Edley's is some good shit.
Yep.
It's some good stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, there's all kinds of food spots we got to
Yep.
take you to on this sabbatical that you're on down
Yeah,
here. dude, 'cause
yeah. I love it.
We're very excited that you're fucking down here. It's a lot. It's gonna
Awesome.
it's gonna be a lot of fun. Where's some places in America that you haven't been that you want to try to get to?
That's a good question. I really want to explore the Southeast. That's why I was happy. Like I drove my truck down, and honestly, I don't know if I'll have time within the 8 weeks I'm here. Well, actually 7 weeks, because I'm going to Mexico for a wedding during this stay.
Not a bad place to be
No,
going.
not a bad place to go. Yeah, but I brought my truck with the intentions of exploring the states. Charleston, South Carolina is really interesting to me.
It's actually where my girlfriend's from.
Oh,
So
yeah?
Charleston is fantastic. Yeah,
Okay.
I can definitely give you some good spots to go there because
Yeah.
Charleston's beautiful.
I'd like to go to Texas, man. I've been to Alabama. I'd love to go back. I got family in Georgia. Would love to go back, explore more. I don't know. Like I'm interested in driving distance from Tennessee.
Yeah.
I don't feel the need to fly. I went to California for the first time this year. It was okay.
I was gonna say different world.
Different world. I was there for a conference, which was great conference, but I wouldn't just go for vacation or whatever, for leisure. I went to Vegas for a trade show, another city that
How was Vegas?
Vegas was, I worked basically the whole time.
How
which
many
was
days
good.
were you there? Because I hear 3 days is like the perfect time to go.
Yeah.
I've never been to Vegas actually.
Yeah, I was there 4 or 5 nights, but I was at a trade show, so from sun up, sundown, I was working. The one free day and night I had, I was exhausted. I walked the strip. I went and shot some machine guns, which is fucking awesome. We can't do that in Canada. So I went on the strip and shot some machine guns.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's
dude.
pretty cool.
Yeah, so I did that. I didn't party or gamble. I'm not a gambler, and I don't love like blowing loads of money either on like partying on the strip. It just wasn't I wasn't interested in doing that. So I did that. But Yeah, I think it's all just within driving distance. The Southeast U.S., man, I really want to explore more of that. I don't feel the need to get on a flight and really go anywhere else, to be honest, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to do here, and there's a lot of great places to go and see. I wish you were here during football season, because if you got to go to the SEC towns during football season,
I went to Knoxville in November.
Oh yeah, that's right. You did go to the Tennessee game.
They played Georgia, man. When Georgia was on a 29-game heater, I think. Yeah. And, we all know how that season ended for those guys, but at that point they were the team to beat.
Yeah.
And what an experience I had on my bucket list. There's a few things on my bucket list coming to the U.S. and one of them was a college football game. That was the highest, and so I did that in November. I want to see a NASCAR race.
Okay, we have a group of racing guys.
Yeah,
we have Rowdy Racing on our podcast network. So we have Dawson and Caleb, and they go to races. Cool. So there's definitely, you should go to Talladega. That's where you should go, because that is, I've personally never been, but I've heard so many stories about it.
That's in
Alabama, and it's like a circus of just rednecks everywhere in that infield. It's just complete and utter mayhem from what I've heard. I've heard so many stories from so many friends that have been there and don't remember anything. It's just like blackout or back out kind of country. Yeah. So Talladega is supposed to be a fun time for a NASCAR race.
So when I went to UT, right?
Yeah,
not U of T. I said U of T and someone corrected me. We have a University of Toronto. We call it U of T.
Yeah.
But it's UT, right?
Yeah, UT.
Yeah, so UT. So I went to the UT game and I thought about who I would invite with me, and I went with my uncle who's from Georgia. When I looked at the schedule and realized they were playing Georgia, my uncle's like a diehard Georgia fan. And my first experience with SEC football, my cousin graduated at Auburn, so I went to her graduation. And my uncle, who's like a very polite, polished guy, like not a partier or anything like that. And I remember driving on the highway, and he had a Georgia sticker. So somebody gave him the finger on our way to Auburn. And I was like, oh, my God, they take their sports serious here, right?
Yeah.
So then when I looked at the schedule and it was a Georgia game, I was like, yeah, I got to ask my uncle. Plus, I want to remember this. It's my first SEC game, huge rivalry game. Great experience. Like, I don't want to go with a rowdy group and get wasted and miss half the game, be in the bathroom the whole time or whatever. I was like, no, I want to see this. So we did it that way. And even for a NASCAR race, like I want to take it in. Of course, I'll maybe socialize and have a few drinks, tailgate experience.
Yeah.
But I want to remember it, and I want to take it in. My father and grandfather and uncle used to go to races all the time when I was a little kid, and I grew up an Earnhardt fan. And in 2001, when he died, I lost a few people, two of my great-grandparents that year. And I remember telling Mom, I was like, this is the hardest year ever. Like, we lost Nanny, we lost Grampy, and we lost Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I grew up kind of like indirectly a NASCAR fan.
We have a race here in Nashville.
Oh, is there a track here in Nashville?
There's a track. It's in Lebanon, so it's just outside of town, but it's considered. It's Nashville Motor Speedway. Yeah, they do a race here once a year.
Oh, cool.
I forget exactly when it is, but like we went to it last year, and that's fun too. Yeah. So that might be your easiest way to do it.
Well, yeah, maybe I'll do. Is it like when is race season?
Race season is right now.
Is it? Yeah.
Let me see when that race is, because I should know the schedule, seeing as we have a NASCAR podcast in our network, but I don't know this shit. Dawson and Caleb handle all of that.
Yeah.
It is in June.
Okay.
The weekend of like June 30th, the Ally 400, and it's like NASCAR. Like they'll do burnouts on Broadway. Like they bring the cars on Broadway and they do like burnouts. Yeah. So the NASCAR like awards at the end of the year awards they do here in Nashville.
Of course they do.
Yeah. We have everything here, bro. It's crazy. Like the amount of events that come through here. Yeah. Like, and especially now the Titan Stadium we're redoing that, and it's going to be enclosed.
Yeah.
So now we could do like
Super Bowls, anything there.
Yeah, right? Super Bowls. If we want to have the Preds in there, like we could do literally anything.
Yeah, that's
It's going to be a Colossus thing. What do you think of the hockey here in Nashville? Like there's a culture. It's a hockey town.
It's a hockey town
in the South.
It's a hockey town. That was one of the biggest surprises coming here.
People love it. People go crazier for the Predators than they do the Tennessee Titans.
That's wild to me.
Which to me, and I'm sure there's gonna be some people that are like, no, we love the Titans. Yeah. It's like, no, the Preds games are like the crowd is into it, and they're smart hockey fans. They understand.
They know the game. Yeah.
Which blew me away coming from New York, because obviously I grew up a Rangers fan, going to the Garden and stuff. I was like, no way Nashville's like huge into hockey, but. the Predators branding is everywhere, and the players are like I remember working at Whiskey Row and seeing PK Subban and Forsberg and all those guys come into the bars. Like, they're part of the community here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I was a NHL hockey player, this is one of the cities I'd want to play for. You know, there's teams that you don't, I mean, if you have you're happy to be in the league, but there's definitely teams that are favorited over others, and Nashville would be one of those. So when you already have that reputation as a great place to live, and because even in junior, there were cities that you didn't want to play for and cities you wanted to play for.
Where was the one that you really
Halifax was a big one. They could recruit anybody. I mean, there's a draft system and all that, but there's ways around it, you know, to kind of go to the team you want, right?
Why has Halifax got like a lot of bar? Is it just like
it's
a fun
big city? So with junior, you want the biggest city possible, but not so big that there's an NHL team there.
Because then nobody's coming to the games.
Because no one's going to your games. So it's a fine line. So Halifax is that perfect mix of it's a big city, biggest city on the East Coast, but there's no professional sports. So it's really good that way, and a lot of money. You know, money helps, and the professionalism of that organization is just through the roof. So teams in the NHL have that reputation too, and Nashville is a place that people want to come. They want to come play here. So when you already have that on your side, they're more likely to take maybe a little pay cut to sign with you, or they're more likely to waive their no trade clause to get traded to Nashville. You know, there's teams that, especially these superstars, they have no trade clauses where they can decline trades to certain cities if they don't want to, right?
Yeah.
But Nashville is typically a place where people want to go, which helps, I think, the hockey culture here.
Yeah, and the team's playing well. I don't know how closely you follow sports with running a business and stuff. I know I don't follow. I know I don't follow it. Like, baseball season's about to start, and I'll be watching. I'll be getting the updates on every Yankees game that there is. Like, that's my team that I ride or die with.
Right.
It is the longest season of all the professional sports, 162 games. But like, I know the Preds are playing well as of late too. Which, if you have the opportunity to be here, if the Preds make a playoff run. Because a few years ago, the wildest that Nashville ever was, it was the summer before I got here. It was 2018. I think it was either 18 or 17. It worked out to where CMA Fest and the NHL Finals with the Preds in the Stanley Cup
same time
against the Penguins was the same week. Wow. So you had you get close to like 500,000 people for CMA Fest, on top of having the Stanley Cup Finals on Broadway at Nissan, or not Nissan, at Bridgestone. And it was like they put like TV for the games that were in Pittsburgh, or even the games that were in Bridgestone. They had like TV monitor, like big screens on the street in Broadway. So you had shows going on while you had everybody, all the Preds fans in the streets that couldn't get tickets for the game, partying outside of the arena. Right. It's just a cauldron of chaos.
And I'm sure there was a lot of Canadian tourists too, right?
Oh yeah,
here at that time.
Yeah, did I tell you the story? The time the Penguins came into the bar. Did I ever tell you that
Whiskey
story?
Row?
Yeah.
No.
I was working. It was like a Monday. It was like a Monday night or like a Tuesday night.
Like during their playoff run?
It was slow. No. This wasn't during the playoff run. This was, so I guess teams will come in to we'll go and get into certain cities and take that travel day a day early so they can
Nashville's one of them. Vegas is one of them.
Nashville and Vegas being on the NHL cities list is big for that. And I'm sure like New York or Boston, or there's Chicago, like there's cities that you want to go to.
Yep.
So I was working one night, and then I remember my boss, our lead security guy that night, was like, "Hey, just a heads up, like there's going to be some people coming in." And I was like, "Oh shit, I wonder who it is." So then all of a sudden, I'm checking IDs at the door, and I see all these big motherfuckers coming over, and I'm like, "Oh," and they're all together. I'm like, "Oh God, what could this be?" And I start checking IDs, and like I see Sidney Crosby, I see Evgeny Malkin, I see Marc-Andre Fleury, I see one of the Stahl brothers. Like I see all these names, and I'm like, oh boy. And then they're all in the bar on the first floor, just like hanging in the corner. They're the whole roster, all the coaches, all of them. And I remember earlier in the night, there was a group of Canadian tourists that had come in. And seeing these grown men, these grown Canadian dudes sit across the bar and just stare in awe at Sidney Crosby, I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize this guy's like a god.
He's a god
to
man.
These people.
He's a god.
And
he's the Morgan Wallen of hockey, or whoever you want to compare it to, or the Mahomes
Is he big? Is he bigger than the Gretzky buzz was? You think?
Well, I wasn't around for the Gretzky buzz, right? So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he's
the guy,
he's right
especially to Canadians.
Yeah, in this generation, I would confidently say he had the Gretzky buzz.
And he had to go to use the bathroom, and I remember having to stand outside of the door of the bathroom so people weren't going in there
trying to bird watch, bro.
Well, he was taking trying to bird watch, like, oh, what's the kid got?
Yeah.
But they were really cool
man.
and laid back and easy, but it was like a dead night at the bar, and then all of a sudden the entire Penguins roster came in because they were playing the next night. They took the early travel day to come, and they came to our bar and hung out the whole fucking night.
That's so awesome, man. It's so funny you say that about there's certain cities that people want to travel to. Like Vegas, the first year they were in the league, because they're new to the league, fairly new.
Yeah.
They had like a staggering home record because all the road teams would go there, party their ass off, and lose. And then they'd go back to wherever they were. But that was like on everybody's calendar, like, okay, our Vegas road trip, we're getting after it, because it's the first time in the league. A lot of those guys have never been to Vegas before.
Yeah.
And so they had a staggering good home record because all the teams would, go in there and party and then lose.
That's how they made that run, because they had a really good first year. I was like, damn, the expansion draft in the NFL and the NHL is a big deal. Like, damn.
Well, they had to rewrite the rules because Vegas had immediate success. And in the early 2000s, actually, when Nashville expanded into the league and Columbus and a few teams, they struggled for a long time.
The Atlanta Thrashers.
The Thrashers, those teams struggled, and it was all based on the expansion rules because they do their best to make it fair, but it was just staggered against the new coming teams, and then when Vegas came in, it was staggered for that team, like with the drafting opportunities and the trading rules and the picking players from other team rules, and they're always trying to massage these rules so it's completely fair, which, as we know, nothing is completely fair. So Vegas fell on the right side of that rule system, and they were good right away, and they've been good since. And they go for it every year, dude.
Seattle's pretty good too.
Seattle's not bad too, yeah. And it's a shame some of those, like Atlanta and those teams, never really got a fair shake. They never got a fair shake at it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I don't know if you saw there's a minor league team in Atlanta, and they wore the Thrashers jersey, or the Thrashers jerseys the other night.
What are they called?
I forget what they're
Gladiators
called.
Or
maybe the Gladiators, but they came out in like the old, like the blue Thrashers jerseys the other
man.
night. Because there's hockey fans in Atlanta that are like, why? But it makes a lot more sense for them to be in Winnipeg. Like,
it's Canadian City, right?
It makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. It's we're crazy about it. I mean, we talk about Bridgestone here. There's lots of things that go on in Bridgestone. That venue is shared by the hockey team and by everybody else, right? But in Canada, those venues are primarily hockey.
They're just strictly.
Well, I mean, they do other things, but hockey's the biggest draw. Where I feel like here, I just went to a sold out show, Dan and Shay, last night, music show Thursday night. Like, I feel like here that venue is shared and sells out for many different reasons.
Yeah.
Where typically the Canadian venues sell out for if a big dog comes to town a couple times a year, and then hockey.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Bridgestone, there's concerts there throughout the year. Whenever the Preds are away, it's a concert or something's going on there. Or they'll do like the monster trucks in there.
Yeah.
Or they'll do the bull riding in there. Like they do all kinds of shit in there. I've seen a number of shows in there over the years. I saw Morgan Wallen on St. Patrick's Day. Was it last year? Yeah, last year or 2 years ago. I saw Wallen in there, and that was fucking wild.
Okay.
And then I saw Cody Johnson in there recently. Which
nice.
Kojo and Bridgestone was fucking sick.
Oh, I'm sure.
And it's cool. It's just the fact that you have all the bars right there, and you can just pregame and then go in there and then come back out. And then if you want to go to the bars again, and just the rush. I remember working the door, and it would be like after a concert, and you'd know what concert it was. Like one time it was a Fish concert. So it was like all the hippies, and I was like, this is going to be crazy. Like all these hippies just going to be wandering around. One time it was after like a Slayer concert, or like one time it was a Kiss concert, and all these people had their faces painted.
Oh my God.
Like you would just see, and I remember like getting like radioing from the door, like being like, all right, Bridgestone just let out. And then it's just a mob of people just going into all the bars.
Right.
It's chaos, man. So being down here in Nashville, obviously you're trying to branch roots into here, like obviously like getting more into like the music space and all that stuff. What are some like goals for yourself or Country Liberty here in year 2024?
Well, with this trip, it's all promotionally minded, networking minded, things like that. I just want to get the brand out. I want to get Country Liberty out. I want to. I brought a classic Canadian fashion. I brought a hockey bag full of hats. And I'm not going home with them. They're here. I'm, giving them off to people that think they're cool, people that think the brand's cool or aligns with the brand.
Yeah.
Musicians, things like that. I'm going to give out a bunch of stuff. And, align with folks like yourself, partner with you guys, and just try to build awareness. Basically, that's what it is.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well,
Yeah.
I'm excited for you. I'm glad we were able to do this. The first of many, I think, podcasts and things like this that we'll do together, bro. Where can people go to find? Oh, and also talk about your podcast real quick.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I just started a podcast. I don't know. I think we have like 14, 15 episodes out, something like that. Try to do one per week. So that's just really about, that's kind of a personal thing outside of Country Liberty. Of course, it's sponsored by Country Liberty, and I talk about Country Liberty a lot on there. But the reason for that was I like having interesting conversations like these, right? And back home, I didn't have them often enough. And I've had a wild ride, man. I left home when I was 16, and I've met a lot of interesting people, and I've met a lot of people just through business, like doing interesting things and interesting careers and stuff. So the whole basis of the pod is just to talk to interesting people, doing interesting things, have those intellectually stimulating and challenging at times conversations, and also just learn. Like I'm so curious about what everybody's doing, and I have such a wide range of interests, and unfortunately I can't do everything. So I can live through other people, and just kind of have those fun conversations with other people. So that's the whole point of the pod. I had Nikki on, I've had some musicians on, but I've also had business owners on. I've also had TV personalities on, and different things like that.
Awesome, man. Well, that's great. And it's the Sawyer Hannay Show, right?
The Sawyer Hannay Show. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I was like, geez, what should I name this thing? And I struggled with it for like a week or so. And my producer's like, just call it your name, dude. Like, stop overthinking it. And I was like, all right, whatever. I'll probably rebrand someday, whatever. But I was like, yeah, just get this thing off the ground.
Hell yeah, dude. That's awesome, man. Well, I love the show. Love Country Liberty. Love what you're doing, and very excited to have you in town for a while. So we're gonna get into a lot of fun. I think we're gonna get into some fun tonight. So it'll be cool, dude. Where can people go to find you on all the socials?
Yeah, so just at Country Liberty. Country Liberty on Facebook, Country Liberty on Instagram. We have a TikTok account. We're not very active. Website, countryliberty.co. You can find all of our stuff there. We've coded the site, so it's basically an American-facing site, so it's in USD. We've got our shipping methods down and all that stuff. We really set it up for the expansion here in the U.S., so you can check us out there. And you can find me personally just at Sawyer Hannay on all the major Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, stuff like that.
Heck yeah, bro. I appreciate you coming on and hanging out.
Man.
Y'all be sure to check out our boy Sawyer Hannay, and check out Country Liberty, one of our favorite brands in the space. And if you're here in Nashville, you see Sawyer, pop on over, say hey, hang out with him. You won't be as cool as us bringing him to a Turnpike show, but be sure to make Sawyer feel welcome here in the great city of Nashville. And brother, really appreciate you coming on. Thank you guys as always for listening and watching Outside the Round. For more on us, visit raisedrowdy.com, and give us a follow, all the socials at Outside the Round and at Raised Rowdy, and be sure to subscribe, rate, and follow us on all the stuff. Tell your mama and them. Well, for my boy Sawyer Hannay, I'm Matt Burrill. This has been Outside the Round.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Cool.